Nicola Sturgeon blocks me on Twitter and finds a new sneaky way to take Scotland back into the EU. But before we get into the video, guys, don't forget we just launched our latest collection.
With everything going on in the world, the I Believe in Britain campaign is our subtle way of keeping the Brexit message alive.
We've got t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, caps, you name it.
Just click on the link in the description box or click here to get one of your own.
So let's spread the word because we are the silent majority and we do believe in Britain. Well, Queen Nicola is back out to try to find a new way to cause trouble for Scotland and the UK. She's planning to essentially open consulates and embassies across the EU 27 nations. And the biggest thing is that obviously we have been talking about her and the SNP a lot. And she and her office are not too happy with this channel, and I'm going to explain why. But before we do that, a couple of very important things. Don't forget, this Wednesday we have our Puppy Appeal live stream. As I said in the previous video, the Puppy Appeal campaign are struggling this year to generate obviously the funding that they need because of the social distancing measures and lockdown. So we're trying to do this online to raise some money for them. You could find the details in the description. Wednesday 6 p.m. If you can't attend it, you can still donate via PayPal. But just leave a note when you donate on PayPal, say that it's for Puppy Appeal, so at least we know what it is. And the other thing is that, as I said before, a number of people have been complaining, saying that YouTube are unsubscribing them. You know this is a big problem, especially for alternative news media channels like this, especially on the right. And we're trying to obviously fight back, but all you have to do is make sure that every now and then you check the channel, make sure you've subscribed, and also click on the notification bell and click on all, not personalized, to make sure that you are obviously subscribe and get the videos as they come out. Now, going back to Nicola Sturgeon, I made a video about the SNP's new bill against free speech, and guess what they did? They blocked me on Twitter. This is childish, and I personally don't really care. I mean, it would be good to see what she's tweeting, but the biggest hypocrisy that's showing from the left is that when Donald Trump, a while ago, blocked a junior journalist, everybody on the left kicked off, saying that, oh, he's in a position of power, public office, you can't shut down with free press, and you can't block people, these are the electorate. And but it's fine for Nicola Sturgeon's office to do it. And I'm not even on the same level, but it's just embarrassing for the SNP. Now, as I said, what they're trying to do now is they're trying to open consulates across Europe, because apparently that's going to help them. This is quite sneaky, because obviously the UK as a whole, as a country, we have left officially the European Union, and also at the end of the transition period we are going to be fully independent and sovereign. And this idea actually came from an Irish politician from the Fine Gael party, who's Neil Richmond, who's now suggested that this would be a good idea, because short-term goals would be realistic in preparing Scotland to rejoin the European Union, which is ultimately their goal. And they've said that this is the dream of Scottish independence. Not really sure you could call Scotland independent if they're a part of the European Union. So that's the biggest thing that we are facing right now, where they're trying to find a new way now to rejoin the EU. Don't think it's going to work anyway. They could open all these consulates and embassies or whatever they want. Firstly, the European Union have already said, a number of countries, including Spain, that you can't just skip the queue. Turkey is still waiting to join. A number of other countries are still waiting to join, and you have to have your own currency when you apply, so that you could then join the Eurozone. It's a bit of a mess at this point anyway. Scotland can't just randomly join the EU. But to talk about this and the whole hypocrisy of the left, we have Paul Embry as a guest on this show, which I discussed this with him earlier. As you know, he's a firefighter from East London, a trade unionist, a member of the Labour Party. I don't know if he's still a member, I'm guessing he is, but he's a Labour moderate. He doesn't like the hard left. He believes in common sense. He's a Brexiteer. Let's go to him and see what he has to say about Nicola Sturgeon and the left.
I find the interesting thing about the SNP, it's weird how so many people on the left are in favour of that type of nationalism, because they see it as progressive nationalism.
Yeah.
But if anyone in if anyone in England displays any kind of nationalist sentiment, they're immediately dismissed by many people on today's left as bigots and reactionaries and xenophobes, etc. And that was encapsulated, I think, with the famous Emily Thornberry tweet from Rochester when she was campaigning in the by-election in 2014 and saw a house with a white van and a St George's flag outside, and thought that this was so noteworthy that it was worth, sending a disparaging tweet about. And I sort of touch on some of that stuff in the book around the SNP, around the double standards between the approach of many people on the left between that type of nationalism in England, that English nationalism, the sense of national dispossession that is felt by many English people, which I think actually manifested itself in Brexit. I mean, Brexit, I believe, was a genuine democratic revolt. It was broadly a working class revolt, not exclusively. Of course, many working class people voted Remain, and many middle class Tories voted Leave. But if you look at the Brexit vote, it was very much, I think, a vote of the English working classes. If you look at the fact that a clear majority of C2DEs, which is broadly understood to be the occupational working class, voted Leave. The further you went down the income scale, the more likely it was that people voted Leave. Some of the areas, our post-industrial areas, our areas that have suffered largely from high immigration and the impacts of that, voted Leave. And I think that was very much the English working class deciding to fight back. And that's something that, Labour hasn't understood, frankly. I still don't think it entirely understands it. And until it reconnects with the English working class, it's going to continue lagging in the polls.
There's definitely double standards when it comes to certain people on the left. And, now they're becoming mainstream for some reason. The SNP, who criticise Brexit Britain for wanting to go out there to sign their own trade deals. But then the same SNP are now proposing to put consulate and essentially embassies in every single EU country. The other side is that the authoritarian side of it, where Nicola Sturgeon has now blocked me on Twitter for simply making a video about the hate crime bills and things like that. And I remember when Donald Trump blocked a junior journalist, that people in America kicked off because people in the position of power, public office, shouldn't obviously block the journalists and people obviously who are trying to hold them to account. I'm not even saying I'm on the same level, but it's a bit of a double standard, isn't it?
Well, I think it's, I wouldn't lose any sleep over that, to be perfectly honest. And your initial point about the SNP and the approach to the EU, I've never quite understood why the SNP has campaigned so passionately to win its independence from the UK. And yet is so fervently in favour of being an EU member state, which of course would mean compromising that independence. That's always seemed to me to be such a clear contradiction in our ideology that's never been explained, and they should be challenged on it more than they are. But in terms of being blocked, there's away from the SNP, there's clearly a trend on the left, which I touched on earlier, of people who think that there should be one particular view in any debate, and that if someone articulates a view that doesn't conform to that, then they should pay a price, and whether that's a price in terms of their livelihood, in terms of their public reputation, then too many people on the left think that that's a price that they should pay. And there's a real danger, and I touch on this in the book, that we're heading into a place, I think, where free speech genuinely is at risk. I mean, once upon a time, if people disagreed with you, they would say, I disagree with you. Now, increasingly, they say you mustn't say that. And particularly if you hold any sort of position of public prominence, if you do dare say that, then, as I said, you're risking your livelihood and your reputation in some cases. And often people will just say, that's offensive. And they will say that in such a way as to try to close down the debate. People think it's a clincher in debate, that if you're having an argument and they think that you've said something that's wrong and that they don't like, simply by saying that's offensive, you've offended me, that the debate should somehow end there. And frankly, these people need to be challenged. I mean, I've never argued that you should go out deliberately to offend people. I don't believe in gratuitous offence. I'm not saying there should be a law against it, but I don't think it's a particularly virtuous thing to do. But if you've expressed a genuinely held view, and that view just happens to offend someone else, then the problem is with the person being offended. The problem is not with the person who's expressed the view. Nobody has the right not to be offended, as the old saying goes. But, as I say, I explore in the book where this came from in terms of this streak of authoritarianism within the modern left, which is increasing and taking a much greater grip, and the impact that that's having in terms of almost outlawing certain views, and the reaction among ordinary working class people, amongst whom this just breeds resentment and results in a greater schism between the left and working class people. Too many people on the left don't see it, and they need to be confronted.
And I think there's a point about a lot of the metropolitan elitist people who are becoming so arrogant. You've actually written a book recently called Despised: Why the Modern Left Loathes the Working Class. And again, as I said earlier, you come from a labour background, trade unionist background, but at the same time, you've written this book. So if you tell us more about it, so people know what the objective is.
Yeah, so the book explores the very serious disconnect that has emerged between the left in this country, particularly the Labour Party, and its, if you like, traditional working class vote, its core vote. I think that over recent years, the values of the modern left have become out of sync pretty sharply with the values of many ordinary working class people. And I've seen that from my own vantage point within the labour movement. I'm a Labour person, I'm a trade unionist, I have been all of my adult life. Been a member of the Labour Party since 1994. I've been an active trade unionist for almost as long as that. And it's just become increasingly clear to me that this schism was growing and growing and was going to result in some point Labour being wiped out at the ballot box. And that's exactly what happened in December. I predicted in the run-up to that election, and it's on the record, people can check it, that we were going to lose our red wall, that the red wall was going to crumble. People within the Labour movement thought I was raving mad because they thought that either Labour was going to win the election, or at the very least it might be able to form a minority government with some sort of deal with the nationalists, or the Tories would get back in with a slim majority. Very few people within the Labour movement were predicting the wipeout that eventually came. So I argue in the book that Labour has basically become a party largely of social activists and students and middle-class liberals living in the cities, particularly the university cities and particularly London. And I trace the disconnect back to around about 30 years. I mean, anyone who thinks that the disconnect started with Jeremy Corbyn is completely wrong. It predates Corbyn by some time. And I think the disconnect started to emerge about 30 years ago when Labour began to embrace what I call the toxic brew of social and economic liberalism. And I think that disconnect intensified over the last 15 years. And the party now obsesses over what many working class people see as fringe issues or secondary issues. And the party isn't willing to put front and centre the issues which affect ordinary working class people and which they want to talk about, things like law and order and immigration and national security, family, traditional values. Those issues are raised on the doorstep, and increasingly Labour activists stare down at their feet and shuffle their shoes in embarrassment. And I think that's gone hand in hand with, over recent years, the left becoming much more authoritarian in nature and being partisan, starting effectively a culture war, which has resulted in a suffocating atmosphere where, people are silenced or cancelled if they don't conform to the precepts of cosmopolitan liberalism, which the party now embraces. So that really is what the book is about as a synopsis, and I also in the book set out some ideas for how I think Labour can reconnect with the working class, but there's a real mountain to climb.
Well, thanks again for watching, and also don't forget, Wednesday 6 p.m. live stream for Poppy Appeal. You can find the details in the description. Make sure to sign up as soon as possible so you don't miss the email. We're going to send out the invitations to the actual live stream a couple hours before it goes live. If you can't attend but you still want to contribute to the campaign, feel free to use the PayPal donation link. Just leave a note, make sure to say that this is for Poppy Appeal. And also, as I release this video at 8 p.m. For the next, if you just watched it now, I'm going to be on the comment section for the next half an hour or so to actually reply to the comments. So feel free to engage. If you have any questions, I'll reply to them. I'm Tousi, and I'll see you guys in the next video.